Hi, boys and girls. This is a video to help explain the IXL Objective Q3 in fourth grade math called Decompose Fractions Multiple Ways. So let's review a couple of things. Decompose means to break apart. And so let's review a little bit. Let's review a way of decomposing just a whole number, not a fraction. So how many ways can you decompose or break apart the number 5? Well, you could do 4 plus 1 or 3 plus 2. You can even do 3 plus 1 plus 1. You could do 2 plus 2 plus 1. You could do 3 plus 1. You could do, 1 plus 1 plus 3. I see I have that one up here too. So we could do 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1. So there's lots of different ways to do it. These all add up to 5, and 5, and 5, and 5, and 5. Well, the same concept holds true when you're decomposing fractions. Today you'll be decomposing fractions in different ways. We have practiced in the past decomposing with unit fractions, and so today you do not have to use only unit fractions. Now, just to review what a unit fraction was, it is the smallest piece that you can break a fraction into. So if you're dealing with halves, it's 1/2. If you're dealing with thirds, it's 1/3. Fourth, it's 1/4, etc. So in this lesson, you're not going to have to deal exclusively with unit fractions or fractions that have 1 as the numerator. Remember, when you add or subtract fractions, you must have the same denominator. If we don't have the same denominator, then we have to make an equivalent fraction to get one. But we're not going to have to worry about that in this lesson. We are taking baby steps as far as adding and subtracting fractions. So I just wanted to point out that rule, though, that the denominator always has to be the same. So when you do these decomposing problems, they will be written backwards as the way we usually think of an addition problem. We usually think of the first two numbers adding up to the answer. And you've noticed that when we decompose, we kind of start with the answer and then we put the pieces that add up here. So 3/5 equals blank plus blank. And this is nice because this shows the relationship also between addition and subtraction. So if we have this fraction right here, 7/8, and we want to say, how can I decompose that? Or what kind of fractions can I think of that will add up to 7/8? I could say, I know that 1/8 plus 6/8 equals 7/8 because 1 plus 6 equals 7. And the easy thing about adding fractions is when the denominator is the same, you just stick the same denominator down there. We don't add up the denominators. We don't subtract the denominators. We simply add up the numerators, keep the denominator the same. Because what we're asking ourselves is, how many eighths do we have? We have 1/8 and 6/8. So we have 7/8. So this is one way that we could decompose it. Another way we could decompose it is we could say 5/8 plus, what am I going to put down there? I hope you said 3/8. 5, and you would be wrong, like I was. Hope you said 2/8 and got it right. Because 5/8 plus 2/8 equals 7. 5 plus 2 equals 7. We could even say, all right, let me do it with 3 different numbers. If we have 7/8, we could say, all right, 2/8, and I want to do it with 3 fractions plus, let's use 2/8 again. And then if I'm doing 3 different fractions, what am I going to put here as my final one? I've already got 2/8 and 2/8. So I hope you said 3/8 because 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 3 is 7 for a total of 7/8. And that's what your lesson is going to be like on IXL Q3. And here's some more exact problems. I'm giving you some more closely related problems that you'll have in the objective on IXL. So you will have some directions similar to this that say decompose the following fractions in two different ways. You notice that this is 3/5 and this is 3/5. And they've given you some clues here. They want you to do two fractions here, and then here they want you to do three fractions. So they're going to give you all these to choose from: 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and 5/5. And they're going to be where you can click and drag them up. So if we want to put two numbers in here, two fractions in here, what would you like to use? You could use 1/5 plus 4/5, couldn't you? Because 1 plus 4, oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to add up to 5. You could add 1/5 plus 2/5, couldn't you? You can put 1/5 here, you can put 2/5 here, and 1 plus 2 is going to give you 3. Now here they want you to do it in 3 steps. So the only way you could do that is to put 1/5 and then 1/5 and then 1/5. And you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to reuse those fractions. So if we're going to do this with 5/6, and here's all the different choices that you have: 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and 6/6. And here they want you to do it in 4 steps. So if we are going to decompose 5/6 into 4 different steps, we'll have to start off with 1/6, and then we could do another 1/6, and then we could do 2/6. So now we've got 1 and 1 and 2, which makes 4. So we'd have to do another 1/6 there. And that would add up to 5/6. So I'm going to type that in there so you can see it. 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 2/6. And then we have to go back with the 1/6. Now you could have done 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 and then put 2/6 there. It's not going to count it wrong if you do it that way or this way. The math just has to be right. So this time they want you to do 3 fractions here. So what if we said we wanted to do 2/6 here? Then what could we put here? Maybe you say, well, let's do another 2/6. And 2/6 plus 2/6 is 4/6 so far. And then the only other choice we have here would be 1/6. So 2 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5, which is what we have right there. All right, there's going to be a second kind of problem that you have on there. And they put this little phrase in the directions that says, using the same fractions but in a different order is not a different answer. So they're going to give you 7/8, for instance, and they want you to decompose it 3 different ways, but only use 2 fractions. So maybe the first one, you say, okay, I want to do 1/8, and then over here, I'll do 6/8 because 1/8 plus 6/8 give me 7/8. And then down here you say, oh, you know what? I think I'll do 6/8 plus 1/8. Well, that is exactly what they're telling you not to do. This is the same problem as that. We've just swapped the numbers because remember, in addition, numbers are commutative. You can move them front or back, and the answer stays the same. So you won't be allowed to do that. But what you could do is say 2/8 and 5/8 because 2 plus 5 gives you 7. And here you could say 3/8 and what else? I hope you said 4/8 because 3 plus 4 is 7. And you'll be given these choices again at the bottom where you can click and drag them into the right spaces, and you can use them. You can use this or this multiple times. So then you might have one like this, 7/10. They want you to decompose it 3 different times in 3 different ways. So 7/10. Let's say we want to do 1/10. I always like to start with 1 because 1 is easy. And now I'm going to say 2. So now I've got 1/10 plus 2/10, which gives me 3/10, and I want to get up to 7. So that means this one has to be what? I hope you said 4/10. And 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, 7/10. So now we're going to do something a little bit different. I am not going to use 1, 2, or 4. I am going to start with 3, 3/10. And if I put 4/10 right here, then I've got all the way up to 7/10, and I cannot put 0 in there. So I am not going to put 4 in there. And if I go up to 5, then I'm going to have 3 plus 5 is 8, which is too big. So now I'm going to say 3/10 plus 1/10, and that gets me 4/10. And then I need to put 3/10 in there again. Now you can see that this problem is not the same as that problem. So far I am good. Well, for this one I have to do a little thinking. If I put 6/10 in here, then I'd have to put 1 in there. I can't put 0. I think we just discussed that. But I can start off with 5/10. And then what else could I put in here? I want to get up to 7. So my only choice is to put 1/10 in there and 1/10 in here, because now I have 5, 6, 7. So you do have to do a little bit of thinking with this. It's not necessarily a hard concept, but you do have to do a little bit of thinking, and then always, always, always go back and check your work. Look at this one and say, does it match any of these if I rearranged the numbers? And it does not, and neither does this, but always go back and check your work. Reading the directions and checking your work, boy, if you can get good at those 2 things, you will be a success.